Hello everyone. Today we're going to be doing a presentation called The War on Homework. In this presentation, you will see myself, Jasmine Harris, Ashley Lynch, and Jordan Sink. In this presentation, we're going to be looking at the benefits of homework, and we're going to be looking at several different subtopics of why homework is beneficial. You may be asking why we chose this specific subtopic. Well, all three of us are teachers in an elementary school setting, and we all kind of were wondering, we all do homework, and some of us kind of, one or two of us kind of, encourage it. Some of us don't do homework, and we really wanted to know if doing homework is beneficial or not. We are all teacher researchers, and one of the main reasons that we research as teachers is because we want our students to improve. And so doing this research project has helped us to be able to learn about the benefits of homework, and it has helped us make an informed and a researched decision on whether or not we should give homework. I also wanted to talk about this presentation could be given at a professional development situation. You could be at a faculty meeting or some sort of thing like that to be able to give teachers an informed and, again, a researched outlook on homework. So first off, let's look at this first subtopic, overall benefits of giving effective homework. So here what we want to look at, the main topic that we're focusing on is effective homework. So what we want to, and later on we're going to go a little bit into detail about what effective homework is. But right now I want you to look at a few of these bullets, and I want to discuss, just kind of go into detail each one, and we'll talk about some of the benefits of giving effective homework. The first one says that it teaches responsibility and tenacity. Well, what does that mean? Well, basically, homework teaches kids to be responsible. That's something that they are held accountable for. It's something that they have to do. And if they want it to be correct, they have to go home to mom and dad, and they basically have to say, hey, I need you to check this and look at this to make sure that it is correct. Some students do that, some students don't. But either way, giving homework gives kids a sense of accountability, something that they're responsible for. And it also builds tenacity. Now, what is tenacity? Tenacity is basically determination or a firm grip on something. And we want our students to build tenacity over their school years. You don't want to give a student you don't want to not give a student homework in kindergarten and first grade, and then they've gotten all the way to sixth grade and seventh grade and eighth grade, and in ninth grade they get homework. They won't have a clue where to start. They won't have any tenacity. They won't understand responsibility of homework. And we don't want this to happen. Instead, we want to gradually, as the kids go through grade school, we want them to gradually learn how to do homework. We want them to gradually learn how to take on responsibility. As we know, when kids are younger in kindergarten, the homework is quite easy, but it just reinforces whatever was taught in the classroom. And we know that when we give them homework in kindergarten, it won't take as long. First grade takes a little bit longer, second grade a little bit longer, and it goes from there. And so that's what we want to build in these students. The second point that I would like to touch on is that homework remediates or enriches through enforced assignments. So basically what this means is homework can be taken in two different ways. We can look at it as a way to remediate. For example, if we are teaching something such as fractions, and let's say we wanted to send home a fractions page with a certain child because they just were really struggling with it. Sometimes kids just need that extra practice, And then on the flip side, maybe you want to enrich some students. And what does that call for? Well, basically, you won't send home the same thing that you would send home for remediating a student. You might want to send something home that dealt with word problems with fractions, So that's another benefit of giving homework. Again, it has to be effective. Also, looking at the third bullet, meaningful and adaptive through differentiation. Well, one good thing about homework is that you can differentiate it. And I think I just gave a great example of differentiating homework so that it remediates and so that it enriches. And again, we don't all want to send home the same homework packet or the same homework book or whatnot, because all kids are not on the same level. Everybody's on different levels, and we have to find those levels and make sure that we're actually paying attention to that and that our homework is differentiated. So that's another good thing about sending home effective homework. And the last one kind of ties in with the first one. It talks about teaching students time management and study habits. Again, you don't want these kids to go through kindergarten and get all the way up through middle school and they have no idea, no sense of time management, and they don't have good study habits. That's something you don't want to do. And then you don't want, like I said, you don't want to go completely through school and they don't have these habits. These are things that are learned over time. And so that's another benefit of giving homework. Okay. The second subtopic I want to touch on is the different types of homework. We all remember being back in school when we all had homework, and we know that there are lots of different types of homeworks. So one type of homework we want to look at is just paper and pencil. Paper and pencil is just basically when you're practicing skills. Remember when you took home those fraction sheets? Remember you went home and took home those addition sheets or those subtraction sheets or whatever they may be? That's basically just to practice a skill. And in our research, we found that paper and pencil homework is good for students for them to get practice, remediation, as I talked about in the slide before. The second bullet talks about digital homework. When we look at digital homework, from what we found in our research, this seems to be the most effective type of homework because digital homework makes it a lot easier on the teacher to differentiate. For example, we found a lot of different homework programs or practice programs online that goes according to the student's level. So let's say a student is learning to add their plus ones, okay? And then they move to plus twos. And let's say plus twos, they don't do such a good job. The computer program does not go on to plus threes. It goes back to plus twos and it shows them how to go back and add two numbers. So digital homework seems to be the best type of homework for students because, again, it's differentiated and it's based according to their level. The third bullet talks about rote homework or memorization. This will be considered things such as sight words, those multiplication facts, remembering history facts. A lot of people think it's pointless, but actually in our research we found that one researcher had actually said that rote homework and memorizing things is actually good for the brain. He mentioned that it gives the brain good mental exercises. And of course, that's one of the things that we want our kids to be working on. We want their brains to keep going. I always teach my kids that your brain is a muscle, and we know what happens if a muscle doesn't get worked. It becomes flabby, but if it gets worked, it becomes strong. And so that's something that we want to look at with rote homework and memorization. It actually is good for their brain because it works that muscle.
So another important part when talking about homework is how to evaluate homework. A lot of teachers may know how to assign the homework well. They may know what they want their children to complete for homework, but they may not know what to do with it once they get it. So for evaluating homework, there's a couple of different options. Some teachers like to grade homework and give a participation grade. Some teachers choose not to check it at all. They may just put a quick check mark on it and stick it back in their binder. They may throw it away. There's a lot of teachers don't take the time to do anything with it. It's more of just busy work for the students at home. But the most effective way that we found in our research on our literature review was to have students self-check and review their work in class. Depending on the homework assignment you give, if you give reading as homework or some type of memorization or sight word practice, something like that, you can't really go over that in class. But if you give some sort of worksheet for homework, you can definitely, of course, make that differentiated, and you can go over it as a class, or if you maybe differentiate it in a small group, you can go over it at the beginning of your small group time. That way you can use it as a quick evaluation tool to see if a lot of the students didn't understand some problems on there. Then that will be your step for the guide for the rest of your small group time. You can say, okay, well, we seem to still be struggling with this from yesterday, so let's remediate really quick before we move on to the new activity. So definitely having them see it. It's also very important to give feedback in a timely manner. If for some reason you do assign a project or some big assignment, first off, you need to make sure that it's meaningful to the student, not just busy work. And they also need to know ahead of time how they're going to be evaluated, because usually we do give a grade on a project. Even if we don't give a grade on it and it doesn't go in the grade book, a lot of times we do like to give a rubric so the students can see how they did on it, even if the grade doesn't count. But it's important to let them know ahead of time how they're going to be evaluated. After they're evaluated, it's very important to give them that feedback pretty quickly, because on just a normal worksheet, they're not going to remember what they did on an activity from a week ago. So they need to know right away on something like a worksheet, especially before a test, so that they know, okay, I'm really not understanding this. I didn't get any of my homework problems right. I need to go back over this. So very important when evaluating homework. Another important topic with homework is parental involvement. There's so many different types of families in all schools. There's a lot of students have to go to daycare after school because both parents are working in the home and they're not off until around 5, and then they get home and it's dinner time, bath, and bedtime. So there's not always a lot of time in some families. There's other families where there might be a stay-at-home parent and the student gets home and they have time to sit down and work on their work. There are families that the parents don't understand the homework. Maybe it wasn't taught that way when they were younger, which we run into a lot these days with a lot of the higher order thinking skills that we didn't do when we were kids. There are English language learner families. A lot of those people aren't able to read English or understand English or speak English. So it's very important for teachers and parents to have great communication skills. When there are parents that don't understand what to do, they should feel comfortable calling on the teacher to find out what's needed. But it's also important for the teacher from the get-go to put expectations out there and to also take into their mind, when they know these parents have these issues, to base that off of how they're going to assign homework. Maybe for English language learner families, teachers should assign homework on the computer because the computer can translate documents and websites. That would be beneficial for them. Maybe teachers can make their homework flexible enough to where if there's those really busy families, the only homework assigned is optional, and there should always be some choice in there. It's very important to maybe put it on the parents too, look over your child's work. If you see that they made a 60 on their reading comprehension test, but they made 100 on their spelling test and you didn't practice with them, then let's focus on reading this week. Have your child read to you for 20 or 30 minutes. So there's so many ways to make homework flexible. It's also important to put this out there at the beginning of the year with the expectations. Also maybe have a parent workshop to put out there to parents. They may have just let it slip their mind how important it is to be involved in their child's academics and show their kid how important it is to focus on their work. They should be prioritizing their after-school events and help teach their students time management skills. So it's really important to push this out there at the beginning and set those expectations and standards.
The research we've collected shows that for homework to be beneficial, it needs to be differentiated. This means that not every child in the class will be doing the same homework assignment. Teachers may be thinking, I'm already differentiating a class and it takes a lot of time and preparation to implement correctly. How am I going to differentiate for homework as well? Luckily, there are several things you can do that make differentiating homework easy. One example is a choice board. Choice boards can be used in any content area and give students options on ways to complete their assignment. For example, if you're giving a spelling test, a child may not learn by writing their spelling words 3 times each. That just may not be the way that's helpful for them. Instead, maybe that child could choose to jump rope while spelling out their words. Maybe they're a kinesthetic learner. Again, choice boards give students that option, and it also helps them become involved in their homework because they're getting a choice, and that should help them be engaged and feel better about completing their homework. With a variety of learners, we really need to make sure that students are working on their level. You may have gifted students, ELL, SPED, or EIP students, and those students need different things from each other. Another way, in addition to choice boards you could use, is adaptive online homework. If homework is adaptive, that means it's moving at the level that the students are. Because you don't want students doing work that is too challenging for them where they're getting frustrated and defeated. And on the other side, you don't want students completing homework that is too easy for them, because they're going to eventually get bored and they're not going to be engaged and really push themselves during that homework assignment. There are many online programs that do diagnostic assessments that assess students' current levels and then give them work at what they need help on. One program I've personally used is called IXL, and it's an online math program, and the students, again, take that diagnostic test and work at their level, and I can monitor their progress. Since people are working on different things, instead of doing it by complete this assignment, you could do it by giving them a time limit. Say, work on your math homework for 15 minutes. And again, then students are working at their level for that same amount of time. This next slide shows some teacher resources for homework strategies. The first resource is a video that you can actually show students. It's about why homework is important. I think this is a great video to show students because that's a question many might ask. Why do I need to complete my homework? This video talks about how homework is an extension of what you're doing in the classroom, and it takes practice to master a certain task. So that video is good for teachers and for students. The next two resources we listed are articles that help teachers make sure their homework is beneficial. For homework to be beneficial, it needs to be, like we said, differentiated. It doesn't need to just simply be busy work. It should be review of classroom materials instead of new things that have not been introduced yet. And again, it just gives examples of how to make that homework useful for you and for your students. The last link we included is offering teachers ideas on how to flip their classroom homework. The video takes you to a TED Talk, and it is about Khan Academy, and he suggests having students watch a video of a tutorial on how to do a certain math concept or science, whichever content area, and then they do their homework in the classroom with teacher guidance and support. So again, that way you're sending them home just to watch something being taught, and then you're with them in the classroom when they're actually working and completing the assignment. His logic here was that if students go home, if they might have that parental support and guidance, so really it might not be beneficial for them. But if they're just learning the concept at home and then getting support in the classroom, then it can be beneficial.